The mirror's surface was cold beneath Emma Sullivan's trembling fingertips. She traced the outline of her reflection, a stranger wrapped in white lace and satin, crowned with orange blossoms that her mother had kept since her own wedding day 23 years ago. The late afternoon sun slanted through the bedroom window, casting long shadows across the pine floorboards of their modest ranch house. "Don't let your heart wither away," Emma whispered to herself, pressing her palm against her chest where the corset squeezed too tight. The words felt like a prayer, or maybe a desperate command to the wild thing, beating beneath layers of whalebone and propriety. Outside, the sounds of celebration filled the air, wagon wheels creaking, men shouting orders, her sisters giggling as they practiced throwing flowers. The whole of Cedar Ridge buzzed with excitement for what folks called the wedding of the decade. Emma Sullivan, daughter of ambitious ranchers, marrying William Hartley, the wealthiest landowner in 3 counties. "Emma, dear, you're not even dressed yet." Her mother, Margaret Sullivan, burst through the door like a dust storm. Her hands, roughened by years of ranch work, tugged at Emma's corset strings. "Mr. Hartley's carriages will arrive within the hour. You know how particular he is about punctuality." Emma winced as the stays tightened. "Yes, Mother. Mr. Hartley is particular about many things." Margaret's hands paused for just a moment, and in the mirror Emma caught her mother's eye. Something flickered there, understanding, maybe even regret, before it disappeared beneath practicality. "A good match is a blessing, Emma. Security, status, protection. These things matter in this land. Love," she trailed off, then forced a brisk smile. "Love is a luxury we can't always afford." Emma had met William Hartley only 4 times before their engagement was announced. The first was at the Harvest Festival, where he'd stood apart from the dancing crowd like a king overlooking his subjects. The second was a dinner at his estate, where he'd spoken mostly about cattle prices with her father. The third was when he'd come to ask for her hand, directing every word to Thomas Sullivan instead of to her. The fourth was last week, when he'd given her an engagement ring that felt heavy as shackles. Margaret stepped back, satisfied. "You look like a queen." Emma stared at her reflection. The dress was beautiful. Imported silk from San Francisco, Mr. Hartley had proudly said, but she felt like a doll arranged in a shop window. A knock at the door. Her father, Thomas Sullivan, entered, his weathered face breaking into a proud smile. "My little girl," he said softly, though his eyes held the sharp gleam of a man who saw profit in every deal. "Hartley's a lucky man." "Is he?" Emma couldn't hide the edge in her voice. Thomas dismissed her mother with a nod, then stepped closer. "I know this isn't the fairy tale you dreamed of," he said quietly, "but fairy tales don't put food on the table. Hartley's wealth will secure our family's future." "And what about mine, Papa?" "Your future is secured too, Emma. A fine house, servants, comfort, never wanting for anything except," he hesitated, "except happiness." Emma turned from the mirror. "When I look at Mr. Hartley, I see nothing, no warmth, no kindness. He looks at me the way you look at a prize heifer." "Enough!" Thomas snapped, anger flashing. "You'll not speak of your intended that way. He's offering you a life most women would kill for." "Then let them have it," her voice broke, the tears she'd been holding back spilling free. "I don't want his fortune or his grand house. I want—" "What? Some penniless cowboy with pretty words and empty pockets? This is the real world, Emma. Dreams are for those who can afford them." The fight drained out of her. She sat on the bed, the heavy silk pooling around her like a prison. "I know, Papa." "I know." Thomas's tone softened. "Your mother was beautiful at our wedding," he said. "We were poor, but proud. The drought of '49 nearly broke us, but we made it. I swore my daughters would never know that kind of hardship." "I understand," Emma whispered. He kissed her head and stood. "The carriages are here. Half the county's come to see Thomas Sullivan's daughter marry the great William Hartley. Make us proud." When he left, Emma turned back to the mirror. She touched her reflection once more, memorizing the face she was about to leave behind, the dreamer who still believed in love. Through the window, she saw the first black carriages gleaming in the sunset. Soon she would climb into one as Emma Sullivan and emerge as Mrs. William Hartley. The thought made her stomach twist. Her sisters, Lucy and Catherine, burst in with excited chatter. "He's already at the church," Lucy gushed. "They say he's wearing a suit from New York City." Emma barely heard them. She let them fix her veil and guide her downstairs. The carriage door opened, and her father's hand waited to help her inside. The air smelled of dust, horses, and roses. As the carriage rolled toward town, she watched the familiar landscape pass by, the creek where she'd caught tadpoles, the old cottonwood where she'd built fairy houses, the red rocks she used to climb to watch the sunrise and dream of adventure. Cedar Ridge was alive with celebration. People lined the streets, waving and cheering as the carriage approached the whitewashed church glowing in the dying light. Inside, hundreds of candles flickered like stars. Emma stepped out, white silk trailing behind her like the ghost of every dream she was leaving behind. She saw him then, William Hartley, tall, polished, and cold. The congregation turned expectantly as she began her walk down the aisle. The organ swelled. The Reverend's voice rose. "Do you, Emma Sullivan, take this man?" The words blurred. She looked past William to the stained glass window of St. Catherine, the martyr's calm face gazing back at her. "I do," she heard herself say. The kiss was dry, mechanical, a transaction sealed. The crowd erupted in applause. Emma smiled because that's what brides did, even when their hearts were breaking. The wedding feast at the Hartley estate glittered with excess, oysters on ice, champagne from France, music from Denver. Emma sat beside her new husband, the perfect bride in a gilded cage. "You're not eating," William said, cutting his beef with measured precision. "The corset," she murmured. "It's tight." "You'll adjust," he said flatly. He extended his hand. "Dance with me, Mrs. Hartley." They waltzed, perfect and soulless, beneath crystal chandeliers. Around them, laughter and chatter filled the room. Then, suddenly, the air changed. The music faltered. A sound split the night, a high, wild cry that cut through everything. The great doors burst open, and riders thundered in from the darkness. Horses reared, women screamed, and the scent of gunpowder filled the air. At their head rode a man whose presence silenced the chaos. Tall, broad-shouldered, with eyes that burned like fire. The Apache chief had come. And before the night was over, Emma Sullivan's wedding would belong to him. For a heartbeat, no one moved. The air inside the grand hall felt alive, trembling with the sound of stamping hooves and panicked breaths. The chandeliers shook, scattering prisms of light over terrified faces. The Apache riders had come like ghosts, silent, swift, unstoppable. Their paint horses gleamed with sweat and dust, their feathers whipping in the wind that followed them in from the open desert. At their head rode the chief. He dismounted in one smooth motion, tall and commanding, his dark eyes sweeping over the frozen crowd. "No one move," he said, his voice sharp and sure, his English accented but clear. William Hartley shoved Emma behind him. "How dare you interrupt my wedding?" he thundered, his voice shaking more with outrage than fear. The chief's gaze turned on him, cold as iron. Then his eyes found Emma, and everything in the room seemed to fade. He pointed straight at her. "You," he said, "white dress woman, you come with us." The crowd gasped. "Absolutely not." William's face turned crimson. "This is my wife, my property. I'll see you all hanged for this outrage." Quote. The chief's lips curved in a faint, dangerous smile. "Your wife?" His tone dripped with scorn. "This woman stands like a ghost in a cage, her spirit already dead from your chains." He took a step closer, and Emma felt her heart thudding against her ribs. There was something about him, something wild and unyielding that made the polished men of Cedar Ridge seem small. "You were promised to another," he said, his gaze never leaving hers, "before your father sold you for gold." "That's a lie." Thomas Sullivan pushed forward, his face red with fear and fury. "My daughter was promised to no one. We have papers, contracts, proof." The chief spat on the floor. "Your papers mean nothing to the earth or sky. 3 moons ago, this woman saved my brother's life. He was dying from a snake bite near your ranch. She found him, sucked the poison from his wound, and stayed until help came. By our law, she became kin. Our family owed her honor and protection. You refused it and sold her to this man instead." Emma gasped. The memory flashed before her, the young Apache boy, his skin pale and clammy, his breath shallow as she worked to keep him alive. She'd thought no one knew what she had done. William's voice cut through the moment. "Savage nonsense! She belongs to me by Christian law and by the law of this land." The chief's expression hardened. "Then we take her by older law, the law of courage and steel." He turned back to Emma, and his voice softened. "You saved my brother. Now I save you. Come." "She's not going anywhere," William snarled, grabbing Emma's arm. His grip was iron, cruel, and possessive. "Sheriff! Arrest these savages!" But the sheriff stood frozen, hand twitching near his holster, eyes wide with fear. Everything happened at once. A war cry split the air. One of the riders fired a shot into the ceiling. The crowd screamed, scattering. William lunged for a sword mounted on the wall, yanking it free with trembling hands. The chief moved like lightning. He dodged the blade, his hand striking out, knocking the weapon aside as if it weighed nothing. Emma tried to step back, but the chaos swallowed her. Then suddenly strong arms wrapped around her waist, lifting her clear off the ground. "No, let me go," she cried, struggling against the grip. "I cannot," the chief said close to her ear, calm in the storm. "You wear the dress of death, not of marriage. I see it in your eyes. Stay, and you will die slowly. Ride with me and live." A gunshot cracked through the noise. Someone shouted her name, her mother, her father. She couldn't tell. The chief hoisted her onto his horse, leaping up behind her. His arm came around her waist, steady and strong. She felt the warmth of his body through the thin satin of her wedding gown. "My family," she started. "They will live," he said. "We war against chains, not innocence." "Hold tight, white dress woman," he commanded. "We ride fast." Another shout echoed behind them, William's furious voice bellowing above the panic. "After them! She's mine!" Then they were gone. The horse surged forward through the doors, out into the night. Wind tore at Emma's veil as the Apache riders thundered into the desert darkness. Behind them, the wedding hall blazed with lamplight and confusion, the music of the waltz replaced by screams and gunfire. Someone shouted, "The wedding night wasn't her husband's? The Apache chief carried off the virgin bride!" The words echoed like a curse through the chaos. The cold night air hit Emma's face, sharp and freeing. Around her, the riders fanned out, their horses pounding the dry earth in a steady rhythm. The moon hung low, lighting their escape. She looked back once. Through the dust, she saw William standing in the doorway of his ruined feast, his sword hanging useless at his side, his face twisted in disbelief and fury. Her veil tore loose, fluttering away into the darkness like a white bird escaping its cage. The desert stretched endless before them. Black hills, silver sand, stars cold and bright above. The horse galloped hard, its muscles bunching beneath her as the chief guided it through narrow canyons and rocky trails with effortless control. The shouts of pursuit faded, replaced by the wind and the steady beat of hooves. Emma clung to the saddle, her heart hammering in her chest. She didn't know where they were going or what would happen next, only that the life she had known was gone forever. After what felt like hours, the riders slowed near a cluster of dark rocks. The chief cut the train of her dress with his knife. "Your cloth fights our escape," he said simply, tossing the torn silk aside. Emma could barely speak, her breath coming in gasps. Where are you taking me?" "To freedom," he answered, "if you have the courage to claim it." They rode again through the night, deeper into the wilderness. Behind them, the torches of the posse flickered in the distance like angry fireflies, but the desert swallowed them whole. When they finally stopped to rest, The chief lifted her gently from the horse. Her legs buckled, and he caught her before she fell. His touch was steady, his eyes unreadable. "You need water," he said, handing her a skin. She drank, the coolness grounding her in this strange new reality. "Who are you?" she whispered. "I am called Naichi," he said. "It means the mischievous one." "And I am," she hesitated, "Emma Sullivan, or Hartley." The name felt bitter on her tongue. Naichi studied her quietly. "Emma," he repeated, his accent softening the word. A name of truth. The desert wind shifted, carrying the scent of sage and smoke. Naichi looked out over the endless horizon. "We ride for Devil's Backbone," he said. "Your husband will not follow us there." "Why not?" "Because even the bravest men fear the places the spirits guard." Emma looked out at the darkness. "And you?" He met her eyes, his voice calm. "I do not fear what is true." She held his gaze, the world spinning around them. Somewhere deep inside, beneath the terror and confusion, a spark of something dangerous and new began to stir. In the distance, a coyote called to the rising moon. And Emma Sullivan, the bride who had been sold for gold, rode on into the wild unknown. Her wedding night carried away on the wings of freedom. The first light of dawn painted the canyon walls in soft gold when Emma opened her eyes. For a moment, she didn't know where she was. Then she remembered the wedding, the chaos, the ride through the night. The Apache camp stretched before her, quiet but alive with morning sounds. Horses snorted softly. Children's laughter echoed faintly through the canyon, and the smell of wood smoke drifted in the cool air. Naichi was already awake, speaking with his warriors near the horses. When he saw Emma stir, he approached with a calm, steady step. "You slept," he said simply, handing her a piece of bread. "I didn't mean to," she murmured, rubbing her eyes. "I thought you might." She stopped, realizing she didn't know what she had thought. "Harm you?" Naichi finished for her, reading her expression. "My people do not harm those under our protection. You are safe here, white dress woman." "I have a name," she said softly. "Emma." "Emma," he repeated, his voice turning the name into something new. "Then you are safe, Emma." As she ate, Emma looked around the camp. It wasn't what she'd imagined. No chaos, no savagery. The Apache moved with quiet purpose. Women tended fires and wove baskets. Men checked weapons and cared for the horses. Children played nearby, their laughter mingling with the sound of the stream. It felt less like a band of raiders and more like a small village, bound together by unspoken trust. Naichi showed her where she could wash in the stream. The water was cold, shocking her fully awake. When she returned, he handed her a folded bundle of soft leather. "You cannot travel far in that," he said, glancing at her torn wedding dress. "These belong to my sister. They will fit." The dress she had worn, so fine, so heavy with expectation, lay in tatters beside the fire. Emma hesitated only a moment before changing behind a rock. The buckskin tunic and leggings felt strange at first, then freeing. She could move, breathe, live. When she stepped out, Naichi nodded approval. "You look less like a ghost now," he said. For the first time since her abduction, Emma smiled. "And you look less like the villain I was told to fear." Quote, he tilted his head, a hint of amusement in his eyes. Perhaps we were both told the wrong stories. Over the next few days, Emma learned more about Naichi and his people. His younger brother, Tazu, was the boy she had saved. When he saw her, he ran forward and wrapped his arms around her waist, laughing. "You came back," he said in broken English. "Mother said the spirits would bring you." Naichi's mother, Koshada, treated Emma with respect and gratitude. "When a mother loses her child," she told Emma, "her heart dies too. You gave me back my son. You are not captive here. You are family." The words stunned her. Family. It had been so long since she had felt anything like it. As the days passed, the fear that had once clung to her began to fade. Emma helped the women gather herbs and grind corn. She learned to ride bareback and to move silently along rocky paths. The nights were filled with laughter around the fires, and stories told beneath a sky so full of stars it took her breath away. But peace couldn't last. One evening, Naichi returned from scouting with grim news. "Your husband comes," he said. "He brings many men, guns, soldiers, bounty hunters. He offers gold for your return and threatens war if we refuse." Emma's stomach turned cold. "Then let me go," she said quickly. "If I go back, he'll leave you in peace." Naichi shook his head. "You think he seeks only you? He comes for revenge, for pride, for what he believes was stolen. Surrender will not stop him." "Then I'll talk to him," she insisted. "Maybe I can make him understand." Naichi's expression softened. "You still believe words can change hearts. That is your strength and your danger." The next morning, under a rising sun, Emma stood on a rocky ridge overlooking the desert. Dust clouds rose on the horizon, the sign of approaching riders. William Hartley was coming. They met on neutral ground, a flat mesa known as Table Rock. Emma rode beside Naichi, her heart hammering. William arrived with a group of armed men, the sheriff, and, shockingly, her father. "Emma," Thomas Sullivan's voice broke as he saw her. "What have you done?" Quote, "What I had to," she said quietly. William dismounted, his black coat immaculate despite the dust. "You've caused enough shame," he said coldly. "Come with me now, and I'll forget this madness ever happened." "I can't," Emma said. "You never saw me as a person, only a prize." "You are my wife," he snapped. "By law, by God, by every measure that matters. I belong to no one but myself." William's face twisted with rage. "These savages have poisoned your mind." Thomas stepped forward, voice trembling. "Emma, please, think of your mother, your sisters. Think of our family's name." "My name," Emma said, tears filling her eyes, "is all I have ever truly owned. And I won't give it up again." Lieutenant Carson, the soldier, turned to Naichi. "The law is clear. The woman must return with her husband. Refuse, and we bring the army." Naichi's voice was calm but firm. "Bring your army. They will fail as others have failed. This woman chooses her path." Emma's eyes met William's. "You'll have to take me by force," she said, "and keep me by force every day after. Is that the life you want?" Quote. For a heartbeat, something human flickered in his eyes. Then he looked away. "You have one day to come to your senses," he said. "After that, I'll bring every man I can find, and when I do, your savage lover will hang." He mounted his horse and rode off, leaving dust and silence in his wake. Emma turned to Naichi, her heart breaking. "He means it." "I know," Naichi said quietly, "but I will not run from a man who believes he owns another's soul." That night, as the camp prepared for battle, Emma sat beside Naichi by the fire. "If I stay," she said, "people will die for me." "People die every day," he said. "Better to die for freedom than live in chains." She looked into his eyes, seeing not defiance but deep, unshakable belief. "And if I go with him, what then?" "Then you die slowly," he said, "a prisoner in fine clothes." The stars above seemed to pulse brighter, their cold light wrapping the world in silence. Emma reached for his hand. "I don't want to die either way. I want to live, truly live." Naichi smiled faintly. "Then live as your heart commands." Quote, when dawn came, William returned with more men, an army of hired guns and soldiers. The air trembled with the promise of blood. Emma stepped out from the canyon before the first shot was fired. "Enough!" she shouted. "How many men will die for pride?" William's face was stone. "You are my wife, my property. I decide when this ends." He raised his pistol. The world seemed to stop. Emma heard the gunfire, felt the wind of the bullet passing close, but it wasn't her blood that fell. William staggered backward, clutching his chest. The sheriff's rifle smoked in his hands. "That's enough," Sheriff Morrison said hoarsely. "This ends now." William Hartley collapsed onto the red earth, his eyes still burning with fury even as life left them. Emma knelt beside him, her tears falling freely. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I hope you find peace in death that you never found in life." When she looked up, Naichi stood before her. "It is done," he said softly. "You are free." Emma took his hand and rose. "Free to choose." And she did. "I choose you," she said simply. In that moment, the past fell away like dust in the wind. They rode south that night under a crescent moon, leaving behind the world that had tried to cage them both. For days they traveled across the border into Mexico, finding refuge among another Apache band deep in Copper Canyon. There, among red cliffs and endless sky, Emma found a new life, a life of hard work, danger, and freedom. Months later, under the light of a full moon, she and Naichi were married in the Apache way, two paths joined as one, witnessed by the stars. As dawn broke over the desert, Emma stood beside her husband, watching the light spill over the canyon walls. "No regrets?" he asked quietly. "None," she said. For the first time, she breathed freely. The wedding night that wasn't her husband's had become the beginning of everything, of love, of choice, of freedom. And in the vast silence of the Wild West, the wind carried her laughter, wild and alive, echoing across the land she had finally made her own.